My name's John Shepherd. I'm the Economic Advisor to Butler Toll. At the beginning of the year, the Financial Times published a survey of about 80 different economists and economic groups about their outlook for the coming year, and specifically they asked for a GDP forecast for 2019. Over half of the respondents refused to give a point forecast for GDP growth for the coming year. Now that's highly unusual. The mantra of economists is often wrong but never in doubt. Economists are never slow to come up with a view. The fact that a majority of the respondents were reluctant to come up with a hard forecast simply reflects the amazing amount of uncertainty that we're faced with at the moment. The economic outlook is always uncertain, but the uncertainty we're faced with as we go through the Brexit process, uncertainty which really comes from the political as much as the economic environment, is probably more intense than anyone can remember in their lifetimes. That uncertainty is reflected in business decisions, in postponing investment. Investment in plant and machinery has declined pretty well for the past year. Investment in construction, commercial construction, has been weak. Clearly, if firms do not know the sort of economic environment in which they're going to be operating in the payback period of those investments, they're going to be reluctant to commit the resources necessary. That uncertainty has affected the consumer as well. The consumer has gone through a torrid time of it in the past decade. Real income growth has been extremely weak. And if you look at the level of real average earnings adjusted for inflation, then the level of those average earnings is no higher now than it was in 2008. Consumers have compensated over the past 10 years by running down their savings and increasing their debt, mainly unsecured debt on credit cards. So the financial position consumers face at the moment is a relatively poor one. You throw into that the uncertainties related to Brexit, which generate uncertainties about job security, about income gains, about the level of interest rates that we may see. And so the risk is that even though consumers are doing better at the moment, households are doing better because average earnings growth is now above inflation. Average earnings growth is now in excess of 3%, inflation's falling back towards 2%. So we are seeing real wage growth for the first time in a while, but the risk is that consumers may take that gain and either rebuild their savings or repay past debt. And so we're looking at an environment where business spending is likely to be subdued and where consumers are likely to be cautious. If you go back to that survey that the Financial Times did about forecasts for 2019, what a majority of economists said was that GDP growth was likely to be 1.5% at best, with the risks very much orientated to the downside. And so as we go through into 2019, with businesses struggling under an environment of extreme uncertainty, consumers trying to rebuild their financial position after a very poor period and perhaps also facing uncertainty in terms of job prospects, income growth, it's difficult to see any great potential upside to the UK economy, and the risks lie very much more to the downside. It may not be a disaster, but it doesn't look like it's a particularly encouraging environment for the next year and possibly beyond that, given the uncertainty could persist for some time to come.